Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn to be free. Welcome to the truth. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we are the co-authors of the Freedom Model for Addictions with Stephen Slate. And we're going to talk about Hollywood today.
Yes, we're going to talk about, I was on TikTok looking at videos, and there's a whole lot of recovery videos about all the celebrities that have died, that have lost their battle with addiction. That's always what is said, is that this person, I think these deaths are tragic, but for a different reason. Their addiction is framed as a battle in our culture because of misinformation. And the majority of these celebrities that quote unquote lost their battle with addiction had been to at least one, usually lots more treatment programs.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea that treatment somehow works, well, that kind of flies in the face of that, doesn't it?
Well, I'm gonna back us up and do a little historical work because she kind of fleshed out what we're going to be talking about. The question is, why does Hollywood? Hang on, I got to just
Hollywood, the music community, like that celebrity world.
Why does it support the 12 steps so vehemently? Why is it so beholden to that model? And the reason is, if you look at the roots of AA, Bill Wilson was a grand marketer, and he had Marty Mann work diligently with Hollywood.
Yes.
And tried to get Hollywood. Here's the irony. They said, it should remain anonymous at the level of press, radio, TV, and film.
Right. That's one of the 12 traditions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And in classic Bill Wilson marketing, he was just completely full of shit. and he wanted AA to be an integral part of the narrative in Hollywood, and
to be the only solution.
Right.
To be where everybody struggling with an alcohol or drug problem went.
So he worked with the unions, the film unions, the actors unions, and made sure that when they spoke about AA, they had talking points. And you can look back in history and see where this all started happening in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And now it's just every third show, there's an AA meeting in it. It's incredibly annoying.
There's so much propaganda that comes out of Hollywood that's pro AA.
Yeah. You almost never see anti-AA or something that doesn't go with that narrative. Right.
Like you would never know if you watch TV shows, if you watch the media at all, you would never know that the vast majority of people that solve an addiction do it on their own.
Yeah, it's always something that really bothers me. And I'll tell you why, especially with harm reduction, because harm reduction, the implication is that the best you're going to do is kind of be addicted. It's
still based on this whole idea that you're broken in some way.
Yeah, kind of addicted. The best you're gonna do is better is better, and I like the term better is better, but not when it comes to setting a standard that better is the only way. I think the best answer is, did you know? And I think every conversation about addiction should start this way. Did you know that the probability of you getting over the problem is greater than 91%? No matter what drug you take? Did you know that?
Yeah.
And whether you're treated or not. And most people would say, I didn't know that. I've never heard that. Where'd you get that?
Oh yeah. I mean, shoot, we say it online all the time. People are like, where are you getting that information? Well, only from the largest research studies that have been done in the history of the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Huge research studies that are done every 10 years here in the United States. Okay. And the only reason I don't think it was done in 2020, 2021, or maybe they're doing it now is because of COVID.
Right. So every conversation, when it talks about probabilities, should start with the hopeful message that it's almost guaranteed that you're going to get over the problem when you factor in age. Now, the question becomes, how quickly do you want to get over your problem? And so what the freedom model does is it speeds that up. So you don't have to wait for your own sort of investigative work and your positive drive to find your own path. We can show you how to get there quicker. That's all we do. That's it. It's inevitable that you're going to figure this out. But if you end up in the treatment trap, if you're the tiny minority that ends up in treatment, they're always like, very few people get treatment that need it. Thank God.
Thank God. Only about 10, maybe now it's up towards 20% of people that fit the criteria for a substance use problem, or substance use disorder, as it's called today. Only about 10 to 20% ever get treatment.
Right. So, and the good news about that is that the rest of you out there aren't being fettered deeply with the message, hey, you're going to die. It's jails, institutions, or death if you don't abstain. And we're going to do
and go to meetings, and do the steps and do all of these things. The thing about Hollywood, going back to Hollywood, that's so terrible is the cult is so well entrenched in Hollywood that you literally, if you don't toe the line, if you're deemed an addict or an alcoholic or somebody with a problem and you don't do exactly as prescribed, going to the right treatment program, getting in the right recovery circles, you don't get work. You get blacklisted.
Right.
You lose your jobs. You they have cooked in so many what I call kind of false consequences. I don't know. That's not the term I'm thinking of, but cooked in so many consequences for not towing the recovery line exactly as you're supposed to. I mean, if you just decide, well, I'm just not going to go to meetings. I don't buy into that, but I'm going to go do my thing over here. It becomes very difficult for you.
Bottom of your head.
Sorry.
Yeah. So and if you don't toe the line, we've had this experience, we've always been outspoken against the trap of AA and the lie behind this idea of you being an alcoholic or a drug addict and that drugs have powers and yada, yada, yada. And if you're outspoken about that, you'll find, like many have in Hollywood that didn't toe the line, that you will have the IRS sicked on you.
Yeah,
that happened to us. We got audited and we passed the audit. That was all fine. But the point is that you will pay a price, and it's shocking the lengths to which they'll go to try and make your life a living hell. So AA has the power to destroy lives, and they have.
Yes.
Corporately, they have. I've had to sue AA in the past, so I know
many people have.
Yep. And so it's the sort of thing where, that is a powerful group of people. And Bill Wilson knew that if you have to remember, this is in the 30s, 40s, and 50s when Hollywood was just growing into this massive icon of our culture. And it was the internet of its day.
Yes.
And he said, I got to own that thing.
Yeah. So smart. So smart.
Yeah. And so what he did was he showed people in Hollywood, let's push the idea that there is a battle. He created such a great straw man, and that is this idea of addiction enslaving you. And then you have Hollywood elites who are heavy drinkers, right? Who in the past probably wouldn't have had a problem. They partied heavy. They would have moved on with their lives. They would have enjoyed themselves, maybe had some problems and figured it out. But now it became a condition, a disease. And so he had two fronts he was going after, the medical community and Hollywood. And combined, you can't lose. I mean, you're going to own society at that point because you're a propaganda machine. And the medical community didn't jump on the disease bandwagon as quickly. It didn't get mainstreamed, although it turned into a disease in the 50s and 60s by the AMA. If you were to poll people right up into the 80s, very few people believed that it was a disease. But now what they've done is they've incorporated addictionology into every physician's assistant and physician's medical schooling with all this propaganda nonsense. And so now we have an entire group of addictionologist doctors who believe in this crap.
Yeah, it's really a shame. I want to go to the irony. There's a certain irony about the Hollywood elite, and especially the recovery Hollywood elite. And it's the ones that specifically have their recovery podcasts now, and they talk about, so Mark did a stitch on TikTok with Russell Brand, and we're not picking on Russell Brand.
No.
I'm sure he's a wonderful man, but the irony of somebody saying that addiction begins and ends with pain.
That's pain. What he said. Addiction begins and ends with pain.
How many of these Hollywood people that end up getting into trouble with substance use, how many of them started their substance use in pain? Weren't they starting their substance use because they're rolling in dough and they were partying their asses off and having a grand old time? I mean, I think the vast majority weren't sitting at home drowning their sorrows. I mean, am I wrong?
I think that just so we don't have the naysayers out there picking this apart, let me throw you a bone. So you might have the childhood actor who has been taught that addiction, that they're susceptible, and that addiction is
a result of their trauma,
a result of their traumatic childhood,
which Hollywood children in Hollywood was horribly traumatizing.
Yeah, I think that they had pretty shitty lives when it comes to that sort of.
They were slaves.
Scenarios. Not everybody. Some had great lives, whatever. So we're not picking on that person, but let's face it. When you party and you're young, and or not even young, let's say your acting career takes off in your 30s, you're at the prime of your life, and you're partying your ass off with these elites and you're making a ton of money. Most of the time, that's where, quote unquote, addiction, but we would call it just a habit, right? But the problem is that permeated all through that is this message that you're susceptible to addiction, and that there's special traumas that actors and actresses go through being in the spotlight, and the loneliness of the elite actor. Right. And so there's now,
which may be real.
Right.
Absolutely. We're not saying it's not real.
I'm saying it in a sarcastic way, because a lot of that is made up, but a lot of it isn't. It didn't come out of the ether. You know, it's not made up. So the problem is that they have all of these different narratives that now feed the machine.
It does.
So it becomes real. It's become a culture of trauma. It's become a culture. It's become rich people complaining about being rich.
Yes, how difficult life is for them. It's more difficult. They have different problems. Well, they do have different problems, but they don't have worse problems or better problems. I mean, there's a whole wide range of problems that people have, that all people have. That's this thing called life that we.
That's exactly right. It's like when you're building a business and you're building something that's really important to you, and it's going to have a huge payout, and you're working your ass off, and you're working 10 to 16 hours a day, every day for years on end, right? Building the company. And then somebody comes along and says, maybe it'd be easier if you just quit. And then you think about it and you say, would I be working less hard if I was a ditch digger?
Right.
No, it's just, it would have a different set of challenges.
Yes.
Poverty does. Right.
Yes.
And so you wouldn't be working less hard. You'd be working hard at something else. Now, let's say that you decided to quit working altogether. Would that be easier? The answer is no. Unless you have a sugar daddy or sugar mama, what you're going to do is you're going to live in poverty out in the street, which becomes a full-time job, which has all these other hard work problems. Here's the point I'm making. We all have a shitstorm called life that we got to navigate through. And I'm not sure that anybody's problems are any worse than another person's problems, but at points they can be.
Sure.
If you have something massively traumatic like the loss of a child, I would rank that way higher than what I'm going through today. But it tends to be equally doled out throughout life.
To everyone.
To everyone. There's none of us are getting out of this alive. So we're all going to experience death of loved ones. We're all going to experience knowing somebody probably that shouldn't have died that did unexpectedly. We're going to experience money troubles. We're going to experience the vast majority of people.
Relationship problems.
That's right.
They're par for the course.
So the Hollywood elites have their own set of problems.
Absolutely.
But here's the deal. Most of us, with all those problems present, begin partying because we like it.
Yes.
Then we build the habit because we like it a lot.
Yep.
But then AA comes along and instills a whole different side, the straw man of the power of addiction, the nebulous force. Boy, you inject that into all the stuff called life that's challenging, and you're partying, and it gets really confusing very fast. And all of a sudden now you're starting to second guess how much you like it. And if you like it too much, and then you have other people parroting this stuff, then you have a therapist that's saying you have a problem. Before you know it, you're just like every elitist out there in Hollywood who's saying, I need to go to AA and be a part of this social club over here, or else I won't get an acting job. And it becomes just a nightmare.
Yeah. Of people controlling your lives. And now we have second generation AA members in Hollywood, right? Second generation of people who were born into the heavy substance using recovery world, and like we were. Yep. And so right from go, somebody commented on that. Well, because you grew up in AA, why did you ever have a problem? Well, precisely, I had a problem because I was taught that I could never touch a drop of alcohol.
Yeah, it was framed as an addiction.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I was an addict. I had an addict identity, honestly, before the first time I ever got drunk, before I even tried a drug. I already had that framed in my mind that, well, I got to get my partying in while I can. Even then, I really liked it.
Right.
I really liked
or you
drunk.
You wouldn't have kept doing it.
I wouldn't have kept doing it.
We don't do things we hate or that we don't want to do. At some level, we want to do it.
I did not. This is the one thing you need to know. The first time I got drunk, and I remember it very, very well, I went to a friend's house after school in 8th grade, and her parents weren't home, and she made us screwdrivers. And when you're 13 years old, you make a screwdriver with half vodka, half orange juice, a big tall glass.
I did the same exact thing.
Right? That
exactly
was almost everybody's first drink. And I can remember it tasted kind of, I had tried alcohol before, but never that much of it. And I'm sorry, I got blurry because of my hands. And it tasted kind of funny. And I felt a little tipsy and a little sick. And I ended up throwing up that night, but my mother thought I had the flu. So I got to stay home the next day. So it was like, it was fun. Even though I got sick and stuff, I really enjoyed the feeling of being tipsy. Now, I didn't get drunk again for maybe a year. It was a while. I had a drink here and there, but I didn't get drunk again for a while. But yeah, there was no pain involved when I was first getting drunk. It was just an opportunity that I had. And I had watched, by then my dad was sober. So there was no alcohol in my house, not even mouthwash. But I had watched my parents party.
Yeah. So to your point about Hollywood. So now we're actually we're 2-3 generations, 4 generations deep in Hollywood. Cause this started back in the 40s and 50s. Right.
Yeah.
And so now it's gone even further into the mythological world of the religion of addiction and recovery it's a battle.
Yes.
The battle with addiction. Now, and I've said this in a million other podcasts, but I'm going to repeat it here. In order for there to be a battle of anything, you have to have two entities. So you have to have two participating causal entities, meaning something has to have some operative force. Like we act and we behave, we do things like that, right? So you have me, and then you have the nebulous force of addiction that is imposing itself upon me. Well, that's a weird idea. Okay.
Right.
But Bill Wilson coined it as the cunning, powerful entity, right? Baffling, right?
Cunning, baffling, and powerful,
right? Cunning. And so and then he talked about it in this personified way. So suddenly we have this straw man, this made up force. This, I call it the nebulous force of addiction, because anytime somebody struggles, they say, we understand the valiant battle with addiction. We're so sorry that you're susceptible to this with your genetics. And, and then there's all this bullshit that's piled on. And so AA in Hollywood has been harping on this battle with addiction with stars and the elites for years.
And it's
wicked
to tragic ends. And, it seems like in the last few years that's sped up, the loss of these celebrities. I mean, everybody remembers the show Celebrity Rehab. I mean, those people, what a true tragedy.
What a train wreck of just ineffective cult mythology.
Yeah, I that's, when I said on a video I did recently about, would you, so, I compared 12-step methodology to poison. It's kind of like people have asked me, so why are you picking on AA? Why you guys pick? Why don't you just say what you do? And because we are people who drank the poison initially. We drank the poison and we were okay. Okay. And so in the beginning, we towed the AA line. We did, like, I rewrote my history. I started thinking in terms of, I, got addicted to alcohol and drugs because of my trauma. I started believing a lot of this stuff. And when you are given something and it feels like it works for you, you want others to have it. So, but the thing about Mark and I is both of us had already kind of been in AA. So we'd seen that the majority of people that come don't stick it out. We'd seen people die who didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, we were observant enough to see that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And so we set out to figure out what was wrong with it and why most people didn't get it. And in our minds, because what AA tells you is when people don't stick around, they die.
Right. And the irony is most of the people that matriculate out don't die. They move on with their lives. And
we didn't know that, though.
Right. No, we had no clue. We thought they were all dying. And that's the fearful cult tactic of trying to loop you in and make sure you stick around.
Yeah.
If you have the hammer of death, jails, institutions hanging over your head every day like we did, you're going to go to a meeting every day and you're going to be subservient because you're terrified that you're going to end up in a casket.
Yeah. And what that really shows, the people that stick it out, what it really shows is you were willing to buy in. You were willing to basically do anything. So you were done. You were ready to be done. Yeah. So if you've been given the right information that you could be free, you would have been fine. And you will be fine. That's why most people are fine that don't buy in.
That's right. Because they move on, because they know. And here's the problem with seeing it as a battle. When, like I said, you need two entities. So when you create the battle, you create a distraction, a made up bullshit distraction called the disease of alcoholism that you're battling, right? It doesn't exist.
Right,
it literally doesn't fucking exist.
It's an imaginary boogeyman.
Yeah, that's right. So the disease concept, right, that Bill Wilson created, the personified view
doing push-ups in the parking lot
of alcohol being personified, that it's human-like and intelligent and against you, is a huge distraction in your mind sitting here when you could just go, I'm not going to look at that. That's silly, weird stuff over there. I think I'm just going to go internally and ask myself if I still like getting fucked up every day.
Right. And how much do I still like it? And why do I still like it?
Yeah. Why do I like it? And how have I built this habit? And my God, I didn't even realize that I built a habit. I have. And geez, it seems silly that I've done that. Now I'm making light of that process. I mean, sometimes it takes us 4 weeks to get through that with somebody.
Right. Sometimes it takes people several months to get through that on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. But the point is, it's a direct preference change internally because there is no other entity. Do you see? That's a huge distraction from the very thing that's going to save you, which is you.
Yes.
So Hollywood sits in their lost world.
I know.
In this personified thing called addiction. And then they just live in that 12-step meeting world. And it's super sad and unnecessary.
Well, and they go in and out and in and out. They toe the line for a while. Then something happens, or they because now they've tied, unhappiness to getting messed up, right? And so, they start to feel the pressures of that lifestyle, of being under the microscope. We called it living in a fishbowl. And they run back out and secretly start to get fucked up again, thinking that they have to, because they're succumbing to their cravings. They're succumbing to the trauma. They're still broken, and they believe they are. And then they're back and forth and back and forth. And each time they go to treatment, and each time they have, just like those of us out here in the world, each time they try and fail, because it's not really a failure, because you're still going back to doing what you want to do, but you don't know that. So each time they do, it reinforces in their mind just how broken they are.
Yeah, that's a great point. That cycle is devastating. And then they get looped into all the special Hollywood type rehabilitation and therapy.
Oh yeah, the best money can buy, right?
That's right. Which just makes the therapist a lot of money.
It does.
Because it keeps them looped into this specialness. You're a special case because you're a Hollywood elitist. And so you have special problems. Now there's no doubt that being a star has a uniqueness about it.
For sure.
But it certainly doesn't mean that your pressures are any greater than the kid that's growing up in Crackville, USA.
Yeah.
Or the farm kid who has to work his ass off at 8 o'clock in the morning all the way till sundown with an abusive dad who's drunk all day. So humans are very resilient, and if given the proper information, make good decisions for themselves. That's why our species, even when we kill each other in wars, we still propagate everywhere. We're still successful because we figure shit out. But this distraction called addiction and recovery is such a sad, unnecessary thing. And it's what's killing the celebrities out there. Now, I keep using the word elites because I'm making fun of, when I use that term, the people that are the controlling agents of the 12-step world in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That run the narrative. And it's wrong. So I'm not talking about the common celebrity out there that's wondering why they keep falling apart.
Yeah, that's awful.
They're not the bad actors. They're not the ones out there making all this bad shit happen. It's the people in the 12-step rooms, the gurus in the elitist sort of world that are controlling everybody else. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here.
And it's making certain people in the recovery world millions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
There are sober coaches now who see dollar signs, and maybe some of them are wonderful people. I'm not going to judge them all, but I cannot imagine agreeing to take thousands of dollars from someone to be their paid friend, to walk around with them and make sure they stay sober.
Right. Stay in their lane.
Stay right. I mean, God, what a terrible job.
Yeah. It's sad.
And a lot, forget about the financial predation that happens there.
Yeah.
We know about the sexual predation in the rooms, and especially, I'm sure that was really prevalent in Hollywood. But there's also the financial predation that happens where people see, you go to if you want to find a bunch of vulnerable people, hit an AA meeting.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people that, because the anonymous nature of it makes it a really good place to hunt.
So here's how I want to end this. I want to tell you, if you're an actor or an actress, or any
music or a musician,
musician, any part of the Hollywood establishment, or just up and coming actor, whatever, and you're getting sucked into this world with the elitists who are running,
who are trying to run your life.
Yep. Escape from that.
You can
live your own life, make your own decisions. You can move on with your life. You don't have to be a part of that community. You can just simply bow out quietly, read the Freedom Model, understand that you are totally capable. There is no straw man called addiction. There are just habits and preferences that you have built for heavy use.
You're not weak. You're not broken.
That's right. And again, there's no entity called addiction driving you. There's just you making decisions, and you need the right information. So get a copy of the Freedom Model, get out of that system, and move on with your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. Remember, if you like our podcast, rate us on Apple or Spotify.
Yeah, it helps reach more people.
It helps us reach more people. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you have a problem, you want to talk to us, there are a couple ways you can do that. You can email us at info@thefreedommodel.org. You can call us at 888-424-2626. You can join our Freedom Model Facebook group called The Freedom Model on Facebook. It's a private group, so none of your friends will be able to know you're in it or know what you're posting in it. And you can actually talk with us directly through that group. How else?
Well, we have the ads at the end of that describe all the different
our different products. You can see our products at thefreedommodel.org. You can get a free digital download of our books by using coupon code FREEDOM100 at checkout, only from our website, thefreedommodel.org. And I guess that's it. So thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, everybody, take care.